We are back and ready to go with match number 2 of the day. I'm Raven once again, but joining me, I've switched out the old guy and I've got a slightly younger guy in the form of Sottle, ready to go for this matchup. And first off, before we get into this one, how did you enjoy watching match number 1 of the day?
I did a lot. It was highs and lows, emotional roller coaster. We actually watched the first series with Hunter Ace.
Right.
So we were getting like Hunter Ace level analysis of everything that was going on. And there was a whole bunch of nonsense just in terms of like whether her card was relevant, who it was better for, what do you seance, do you just secure an Elysiana, or do you try and seance your opponent's Shudderwock, which also has an Elysiana inside it when you get it. Like all this crazy stuff. We got incredibly close to the turn limit, I believe. I was trying to keep manual count watching it, so I'm not entirely sure, but I think we were fairly close. I think that's actually what Kin was playing towards the end, because he had no hope of winning when it got to that point.
Yeah,
but he's just trying to hit the turn limit. But yeah, from then on, series got a little bit more conventional in terms of decks that were being played. There was an unfortunate miss lethal there from Kin as well. So
from me.
And from the casters as well.
I'm sorry.
But you know, he is now a Grandmaster for the APAC region, so he has got an opportunity to show that he is a great player, because he is. And one mistake does not categorize the quality of a player. And obviously he's played fantastically off stream a bunch of times to get to this point. The stakes are incredibly hhigh. And the stakes continue to be incredibly high in this one now, Ray.
Yeah, I was going to say, one mistake doesn't make a player bad. Watch GM Season 2.
Yes.
Across any region. But yes.
You could say he'll fit right in with APAC.
I couldn't. So we'll go into this match now, and there's a player we all know and love. It is Orange, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Sottle, but to summarize this all the way down to the basics is, if Orange wins the whole tournament, he's back in Grandmasters. If he does not, he is not.
Correct. Yes. If and only if he wins
exactly,
the entire tournament,
he has to win.
He
everything.
is a Grandmaster. But that is also the case for his opponent in Totosh. It's also the case for Dead Draw, who is another European player in this top 8. So for the European players, it is very simple, and that is the one remaining GM spot that we have undecided. Both of our Americas players are decided for next season. Both of our APAC players are now decided for next season. Felkine is locked for European Grandmaster. So these European players who are in top 8 are now playing it out, and all of them must win to be a Grandmaster.
It's insane, isn't it? Because on any other regular tournament that we've had in the past, yeah, it's tense. You're playing for then top 4, then you're playing for finals, then you're playing to win. That's intense and you want to win. But there's a whole extra level of pressure on, especially for these European players now. But Sottle, while I've been casting the slowest matches known to man, what have you been making of these deck lists from these players? What lineups have we got to play with?
It's a lot more conventional than we saw in the previous series, and the card N'Zoth, I believe, is not featured anywhere. Both players have Priest, but it is combo Priest on both sides. Totosh does have a warrior, but it's a control warrior, conventional control warrior. Armagadillo to Morden, not the N'Zoth version. So there is no N'Zoth to be seen in this matchup. We could probably play 3 of this series in the time that it took the first one to get through.
Game.
Yes, exactly. I believe that was like almost an hour-long game, that first one. But yeah, Totosh has had his Rogue banned away, which is the most aggressive form of Rogue that we've seen in the tournament. Not the most aggressive possible form of Rogue, but the most aggressive that's being played in this tournament. Orange has his Quest Shaman banned away. I did get a chance to talk to Orange just as he was getting ready to come out before here, asked him for some thoughts on the series. Unfortunately, both players were in close proximity to each other, so they were both kind of reticent to share any insightful information, but they did both kind of agree that this is a close one in terms of lineups.
Even if you just look at the classes on screen, right, it is very close when you know they're playing very similar archetypes as well. One thing I will say as we took a glance at the deck list, Totosh's Shaman, I don't play a ton of token Shaman, I prefer Quest myself, but his list is the one I like. There's the Soul of the Murlocs there, there's one Plague of Murloc, there's Sea Giants, there's no Things from Below, which is something we've had to contest with in APAC. So it's just, I feel like the most solid version of the list today as it stands. So I think it's no true surprise if he's going to bring a deck that good, that with some solid play, that he's made it to this top 8.
And here we go, game number 1 of our second quarterfinal of the day. Orange kicking things off. Decent options here in hand, but he is going up against this token shaman, so it's very, very difficult for Rogue to fight back against this. It's well positioned, is Rogue, in this metagame right now, as we've seen. If you look at statistics for the tournament, Rogue is the deck for this tournament. It's the highest win rate deck, and it's also, even within its high win rate, securing an even higher win rate against the most common decks in the tournament, which is kind of pushing its usefulness up even higher.
Earn the title of the Bring.
Yes, the Bring.
I do love, and this is not super in-depth, you know, mind-blowing tactics, but I do love the Van Cleef keep here because Orange is on coin. Because honestly, versus this deck, I can see a coin Cleef, even as a worst case, to say, this is a 4/4 versus Token Shaman. Sure. It's going to kill a few minions. You know, it's at least going to keep a lid on some of the early game havoc that can happen.
Right.
Not that he necessarily has to coin it, it's just I like the option being there for Orange.
Flame Tongue Totem, quite mediocre in Orange's deck, I would imagine. He does have lackeys and a bunch of 1/1s here. You see Swashbuckler, you see Evil Cable Rat, but he is going to be almost certainly assuming the role of control deck in this matchup, where totosh is looking to explode onto the board. So he's not going to have a bunch of minions live on the board and attacking most of the time that Flame Tongue can really come into play and be effective with.
And with a deck like Rogue, how much do you think Orange is thinking about board minion count on his side? Obviously, he has levels of impact over Totosh's board size, but in terms of rocking Mogu, Sea Giant, is he going to be aggressively even over-trading, as a word I'll use, to try and keep a lid on the chances of, or ease of Mogu Evolves coming down?
Yes, absolutely. I think the big weakness that this Rogue deck has is against other aggro decks even, or against mid-range decks that are just playing, you know, premium stats per turn, right? Like you play, you know, whatever, a 2/3 or 3/2 on turn 2, you play a 3/4 on turn 3, a Yeti-sized thing on turn 4, like that kind of deal. Rogue will just very efficiently deal with that. What Rogue as a class doesn't really deal with, because most decks aren't playing like Fan of Knives, and that's a very mediocre AoE anyway, is just a deck that can explode onto the board on one turn, which is just what Token Shaman does, but it does it on key turns where like you allow them to, right? Like you let them have a couple of minions in play, you have a couple of minions yourself, and then suddenly they have the big explosive Sea Giant Mogu turn. So I think Orange will have to be very, very careful to just not allow that to happen as long as possible, because he can't deal with it when it does.
Yeah, it's an extra mini game, isn't it, right now in Hearthstone, where, but you know, minion count all the time when you're against Shaman is a thing you have to constantly consider on every single turn, how much mana each player has, how many cards each player has, and really try and keep on top of that, whereas versus most other decks, outside of mind control tech at a very basic level, it doesn't really matter. Normally more stuff is better.
Yeah, do you know what it reminds me of? Is the Season 1 Grandmasters meta, where it was all Cyclone Mage mirrors a lot of the time.
Sure, yeah.
The very best players, like looking at Fino in Europe, for example, who was just playing Cyclone Mage just better than everyone else, which is why he ended up winning the whole thing. Almost every turn, you could look down at his opponent's hand, and their like Sea Giant Frost Nova turn was 1 mana off. Like every single turn, and Fino was doing that deliberately, turn after turn, with absolute precision.
And that's hard.
It really is.
So even now, it's very easy to see how you could slip into giving, or Orange could slip into giving Totosh a good turn with, well, Miscreant generates 1/1s.
Right.
Shark generates everything twice.
Right.
The Cable Rat generates a 1/1 in some respects. So it's so difficult, especially because there's a Spirit of the Frog down that Orange can't really interact with. It's very hard to make these calls right now. Still early, and he can still trade off the fence into the 2/1, which is going to help keep this contained. But still, like, cards that would normally be great. Yes! You want a Faceless Lackey to play as the Rogue, but you just can't.
Faceless Lackey, the anti-nuts against Shaman. Faceless Lackey is actually cheating. Like when you get it as Shaman, when you get it in this Shaman deck off your Sludge Slurper, it's just ridiculous. Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And Orange playing around it by getting Cho means if he evolves, he also gets an evolve.
Yep.
But look at this right now, like, oh, it's so crazy.
Yeah, if there was a Thunderhead turn going alongside this, if there was Voltaic Bursts going alongside this...
Orange just loses.
Yeah, suddenly Totosh is just in this position where he can just play his entire hand. Just just wait for all of these animations to go off.
Yeah. They're incredibly slow, aren't they?
Spirit of the Frog, Lore Walker Cho. So the Mogu's going to come down here, and then he's going to trade off. He's going to Bolt. He's going to Zap for the Evolve. Okay, this makes sense. I know I saw Firebat on Twitter. I can't remember whose lineup it was that he was commenting on, but he was saying, like, okay, this is, like, the lineup. It's only, like, 2 cards different from what I would have brought if I was playing. And then one of the cards he was saying he would have changed is that he didn't like Lightning Bolt in Shaman because he wants his... He wants his minions to evolve into Divine Shields and Tyrion. No, but specifically because of Spirit of the Frog, he wants to pick up Evolve when he plays his 0 mana stuff. He doesn't want to pick up a Lightning Bolt. You saw that happen there to Totosh, but it's just lucky that he had both Zaps available.
And what an Evolve it was. Glass Knight and Tyrion, 2 very awkward minions to deal with outside of... The only good thing Rogue can have really to these turns is Sap.
Yes.
Say, I'm going to make you pay the actual mana cost for this card and slow down the game a lot. Orange doesn't have that.
And it would be a cruel twist of fate if it's evolving into 8-drops that costs Orange his redemption story into Grandmasters. If you remember, a big part of the reason why he ended up getting relegated in the first place was evolving into an 8-drop that just happened to be Octosari in an incredible fatigue situation. Did you notice, by the way, in your series that he took the stable hand? The beast generating thing that can generate you Octosari in a hyper... There was a turn where he played the stable hand, which could have been an Octosari, and then evolved into an 8-drop that could have been an Octosari, and everyone's just watching like, no, not like this.
I just didn't care, did he?
No. I think it's fine. You know, like it's freaking 3% or whatever else. Like,
and for
forget
me,
about it.
It's especially from Elysiana. Stablehand's a very good pick, right? It's stuff.
Yeah, that's the one I'm still not sure. I haven't like quite convinced myself yet whether that's just a no-go card off Elysiana. You just don't take it for that exact reason.
His other choices were bad, though, from what I can recall.
It definitely does depend on like the card quality that it goes up against, for sure.
In the meantime, the Orange is not looking too happy, and understandably so, whereas Totosh, I'll confess, a player I've not really seen too much in the competitive scene. Obviously, the Evolves helped, but he's managed it well. And one thing I was surprised at how much it's talked about, but it obviously makes sense, is knowing exactly how your Spirit of the Frog works. Sounds a bit silly, but like you mentioned about the Firebat idea of just evolves, is you play Spirit of the Frog, then you know the sequence that ends with your Spirit of the Frog being gone, because you don't really just want a 0/3 on the board. You do want to evolve it or mutate it out at some point. And I think Totosh just showed us the textbook example of what you want to do with that turn.
Okay, after saying this Flame Tongue Totem was not going to have a big impact, it does have some potential payoff right now. Does enable the 2 trades on the board, but then even then, that Ashbringer...
It's almost just facing down lethal, isn't he?
Can be a real problem.
1 damage plus 3 turns equals the game.
Orange does have like Shark plus Lackey generators, though, to look for Titanic Lackeys, for example, which would then make huge taunts.
Or just any taunts, I think would be...
Right. But specifically, like with Shark on board, you have the option to like make a taunt that doesn't even die to 1 Ashbringer swing, which is a really big deal.
And I think he has to go for it. Like, these minions cannot hit him again, right?
Yeah, is there a more efficient way to do this than using Flame Tongue? I don't think so.
So Shark, Kobold doesn't
he only has 4 mana anyway.
Anything. Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot the rogue was overloaded.
Yep. Off his Lore Walker Cho Zap.
I've had enough of this last series, okay? I just wanted a good old honest aggro fight.
Oh, really? Really?
Oh, I mean, this does it.
Double trades in... It's interesting. Okay, so like I was kind of thinking Flame Tongue Totem there because we had Spirit of the Shark in the hand for those Lackey generators, which could have been important. Because again, like maybe I'm just too tunneled on the idea that this Ashbringer is 15 damage and Orange just can't get hit with all of it, right? Like he has to find some counterplay to not get hit with 15 damage from Ashbringer or he's just dead. So I was certainly thinking like Spirit of the Shark Lackey stuff to try and find Titanics, which is why I wanted to hold on and use the Flame Tongue instead.
I'd love it if we just saw Bloodlust this turn. Chuck him some damage to the face. Cash it in while you can.
He does, like, I mean, it wouldn't be the worst idea, apart from the fact there's this Lightning Bolt in Totosh's hand that, like, does the job anyway.
And it doesn't make up the difference for an Ashbringer swing, right? So it's not like cash it in now because if you can't swing the last one, you've got it.
Right.
It wouldn't quite make the difference anyway. It would just be funny, and I'd like it.
Orange does play 1 copy of Life Drinker in his Rogue. Could end up being
pretty
important.
uncommon.
There is little time.
Solid. Oh, okay. Wonder whether he was just going to make this board a little bit innocuous and just soul the Murloc it.
I think he's going to do both, right?
And say Bloodlust gets there.
Yeah, he's just going to do both.
Yeah.
Evolve first, get the bigger minions, rip the soul afterwards.
Just wonder if there was any kind of bait where it's like, he's not going to deal with these minions because they're rubbish. But regardless, this is just more powerful. And honestly, leading on to my half joke about Bloodlust, this game probably doesn't go on for too much longer.
No.
So totosh might as well apply as much pressure in the short amount of time as possible and ask Orange to pull out miracles.
Agreed. Fan of Knives, that ever get you anywhere, or is it just a rebuy?
Definitely. Wait, it could get him to a Life Drinker, but it would be unplayable.
Yeah. But what are you looking for specifically if you're shadow stepping here? Like, what's the out?
It's honestly sap the best outcome and just sap the mummy or something.
Okay,
like, I'm just to buy
sap is
time.
interesting,
Yeah.
sure.
I guess this cleans up the plague, but he makes so much other stuff anyway that he can even get to needing to clean up the not the plague, sorry, the solar Murloc.
So he needs to go Cable Rat here, pick up another relevant lackey.
Like damage like it does.
But even then he can't play it alongside the Fan. Fan of Knives is very effective here, is to not be immediately dead, because it does take care of all the stuff that pops out. Sap is the draw, right?
Oh.
Sap is the
It
draw.
literally
off
kept
that
him
Fan of
alive.
Knives.
It literally
Yeah,
kept
yeah.
him alive. Bloodlust Lightning Bolt was lethal next turn.
totosh looks very upset with how incredibly good a position he's in right now.
Well, like I said, if he just cashed in the Bloodlust, he'd be in a better spot.
Quiet Raven. I've forgotten about your just the most results-oriented man of all time.
At least it's on purpose.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's when I genuinely think it's correct is the problem.
Yeah.
Still though, double spell damage is going to look pretty sweet as well.
Yeah, put
There's
it
a
to one.
Lickham. Even if there's some way of weapon removal kicked in and the board's cleaned up, there's Lickham. And I think there's also a 1 next to totosh's name very soon too.
There is that Shadow Step pickup. Like maybe there was a world where the Life Drinker was found for Orange, and then the Shadow Step can weave some magic, but doesn't even have the Life Drinker right now to be able to make that as a starting point. So totosh is going to go 1-0 up here. There is still, what, maybe Titanic Lackey out for Orange to be alive this turn? Same kind of thing I was talking about before with Shark, Cable Rat, Titanic
from
Lackey.
his view, right?
From Orange's
Yeah,
perspective,
yeah.
yes.
That's all. There's a Bloodlust. But yes, you are right. Orange is, of course, going to try and play to keep himself alive in this game. This is Conquest full best of 5, which means first player to 3 wins, got to win with all your decks. So although it sounds like a long format, it isn't. You really want to put everything you can possibly put into it, especially when Orange's Grandmaster's opportunity is on the line. Wow.
Still nothing.
No Titanic. All going to come down.
Oh, go back, go back, go back, go back.
I
So when someone's like flicking through channels on the TV, he's like, no, it's there, go back, go back, go back, go back.
Very rough there. But totosh takes a win over Orange there. And again, it was a good matchup for him. A great game 1 of just saying, Token Chain versus Rogue. It's one of the decks you want versus Rogue in this meta right now.
Yep.
As opposed to definitely some of the decks you do not and you just take a hard loss to a lot of the time. So getting off to a great start there. And again, I think totosh played just very solid Shaman play, which might not be mind-blowing, but you can mess it up sometimes with when you evolve, when you go for Mogus, etc.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I'll confess, this is my first like real exposure to watching totosh play close up. And I was pretty impressed. There was a couple of things in there, little micro optimizations that I didn't even really talk about at the time, but like cashing in the lightning bolt when he had double spell damage. He rolled the spell damage totem.
Right.
So he went, okay, play the kobold, soul the Murloc that board, and then use my lightning bolt right now, because he knows that one of the things that can come back against him in that position is like Life Drinkers and Shadow Steps. So maximizing every point of damage ends up being important there. His sequencing against the Lore Walker Choturn was really nice. He had to give the zap over, but then he dropped his Mogu. He traded the Mogu first. He played his Evolve. Obviously he high rolled the heck out of his Evolve to incredibly high quality minions.
But that happens sometimes.
It happens with 8 drops. That's why you do it. Like, depending on what you want to call a high roll, it's like 1 in 5. You just get the absolute
to
nuts.
get like an incredibly powerful
right,
minion.
and it's like Grom, Walking Fountain, Batterhead, Tyrion, Alakir, Octosari. Yeah, exactly. Like
the list goes on.
There's like 31, 32 Ragnaros. There's like 31, 32 8 drops in the game, and or depending on like what the board situation is, upwards of 7 or 8 of them might make people think, oh, he got the perfect one right there. And it's like, well, there's freaking 8 of them that are just absolutely insane. Yeah. Like, it happens all the time.
And even a good chunk of the others aren't bad. So even if that's obviously why
do we count Ironbark Protector? Like, that's just a freaking 8/8 taunt. Like, sometimes that's the nuts.
And also, sometimes taunt is very important as well in those interactions. But let's get into game number 2. Orange currently 0-1 down versus totosh. After totosh taking a win with the Shaman, means that he has moved along to his extremely standard, as far as you tell me, Control Warrior, going up against Orange's Highlander Secret Paladin.
Yeah, this list from totosh is not the N'Zoth version. He does have Elysiana in there, so he is prepared to go hyper late against other decks, but that's not going to be super relevant against the Secret Paladin. But apart from that, it's really just kind of what we've been seeing throughout multiple weeks of Hearthstone Grandmasters.
Right.
It's double Weapons Project, double Eternium Rover, playing 1 copy of Execute in there alongside 2 Brawls and only 1 copy of Plague of Wrath. But then it's just the Armageddillo 2 Morden kind of style of Control Warrior that you're used to seeing.
And also, unfortunately, I'm used to seeing what Orange is seeing right now and staring down the Rover there, just as so annoying as a 1-3 beating you when you're the aggressor and the Warrior already has the board. I will say that the Wasp is actually pretty sick. If you're staring down an Eternium, at least you can kill it off in 1 swing.
Raven, when I become president of Hearthstone, I'm going to make Eternium Rover coin snip snap illegal. That will be my first action.
Okay, bit of a weird first go-to. Maybe just put it on your top 10 list.
Nope,
but
nothing more important to me. This is unfair.
So a couple of things happen. Either that happens in the next few months, or Sottle suddenly starts caring about wild interactions. I don't know which one's more likely. 2045. So it's like, first thing.
I was just getting a little concerned that after that spiel he wasn't going to do it, in which case I'd have to divert quite quickly, but no, like this is just the nuts.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why you play Eternium Rovers in your deck, which is a debate that we've been having in Europe Grandmasters with Admirable.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that interview where Viper just like dunked on Admirable for about 10 minutes about how Eternium Rover was trash?
But now I'm going to watch it.
It was great.
Okay. I do think as well though that I'll never begrudge a player taking their time, even if the turn seems obvious, especially with the stakes right now, right? totosh, yes, you probably do that 99 times out of 100, maybe 100 out of 100, but why not just have a little think about it, take your time, relax?
I mean, there's real considerations as well. Like he has Armageddillo in his hand, right? So if he finds like 2 Morden later in the game, like does he ever want to coin Dillo? Probably not, because coin Dillo is a bit weird a lot of the time, because like, well, you coin the Dillo, but then you're still 2 turns away from the minion that you buffed, so it doesn't really end up making too much sense. But also if he coins the Snip Snap here, he's potentially has no plays for like a couple of turns. Like if there's not a good Spellbreaker target on turn 4, he might be passing turn 3 and turn 4 based on his draws.
Right.
But there's a lot of cards he can draw to get himself out of that. Town Criers, Restless Mummies, second Eternium Rover. They're just being a good Spellbreaker target on turn 4,
exactly.
which is not unlikely considering you're playing against a deck with magnetizable minions in it. So I don't need much convincing to coin Snip Snap, but even if totosh did, I think there are plenty of good arguments to convince him to do so.
And now the Weapons Project, although not going to do any of the wacky thing, I feel like the only reason I've ever talked about Weapons Project in the past month or so is in regards to Holy Wrath Paladin. This is just a weapon that kills stuff nowadays, or at least in this matchup. So it does mean that he is going to be picking it off, and Orange can make some use of his weapon, of course, but it's not going to be mind-blowing, especially when totosh doesn't exactly have, the mummies early game, any of that extra early game that Warrior, I feel, has very consistently. He doesn't have it this time.
Right. I do think Weapons Project was pretty useful against Priest previously as well.
True.
I think that was the other place it was relevant. You go like 1-drop Weapons Project and you're contesting their early drops, but yeah, it was certainly a card that started seeing more play because of how common Holy Wrath Paladin became in Grandmasters.
Even with Vargoth.
Yeah, I never really got behind the Vargoth meme. It was confusing to me.
I think it worked once significantly well in APAC.
Did it? Okay. Sure.
Tyler brought it.
Silly boy.
In the meantime, though, do you think the Spellbreaker's just worth dropping down here to remove the Divine Shield?
It's
Is it ever good enough?
slightly scary, right? Because you can get the egg on your face play, right? Where you Spellbreaker the mech, you trade off a 1/1, and then just like freaking War Gear or Glowtron or something else just starts to like get magnetized on this mech base. Like you could Spellbreaker just to clear the Divine Shield and kill the mech.
You could.
Is that a real thing?
You do give up the 3/1 into
And then
the
there's a 3/1 into your Spellbreaker.
But-
Yeah, I don't like that either.
And I think, honestly, with double Brawl in hand, although I would normally not like to hero power pass, if you're going to and have double Brawl, I'm back with you again.
Right.
Because again, in this matchup, Orange is not going to just not play minions this turn and not do stuff, right?
Yeah.
So Brawl always gets good, and leaving the 1/1s without doing anything means that either Orange pings them off, or it makes your Brawl even better going forward.
Yeah, the world where Brawl doesn't start to get good in the next couple of turns is the world where Orange is magnetizing his Zilliax and his Glowtron and whatever else, and then you have the Spellbreaker still. So
Yes.
like you kind of just get paid off both ways. Never Surrender, Port of the Battle Cry. Not a particularly useful secret against the card Brawl.
I wonder.
Orange just taking his time here.
I must move quickly.
Definitely awkward, isn't it?
Yeah, this number of 1 health minions that he has in play, he'll be thinking about Whirlwinds and Warpaths from the opponent. And there is the 1 copy of Whirlwind in this deck from Totosh, which I just had to double check because I thought I saw it earlier, but then just earlier I remember saying he only played a single Plague of Wrath, and that's an unusual combination to play Whirlwind and 1 Plague of Wrath.
That's true.
You usually play it alongside double Plague of Wrath. So I just went back to double check, and yeah, there is that copy of Whirlwind in the deck.
That's a good card too. Dynamatic. Even with the way this board is shaped up, it's likely the 3/4 lives on 3/1.
Yep.
But that's still not that bad. It means that there's still no secret proc on it, and you can clear up at least these 1/1s and hack it down. Doesn't have to do it this turn. I think Brawl would just be acceptable as well. But I also wonder if Totesh is actually just okay taking another hit. Is he fine if he just plays Dynamatic and maybe doesn't even bother about the rest of the board?
Yeah, I think I'd Dino here.
It clears off 5 power and it's like,
Yeah.
well, now I've got minions too. And then you just wait and wait and wait.
Yep.
And then Armageddillo kind of does the same thing, although I doubt he'll want to play it with no taunts in his hand, especially because he doesn't actually have... he's not really under any threat right now anyway.
Does rip the Brawl though. I don't think if there was any random secret that, of course, he doesn't know about that would affect his decision there to not play a Dynamatic, and I don't really think so, right?
Well, Redemption brings one back,
Sure.
but you've got a 3/4
Yeah.
and still Brawl. So
Redemption also brings something back when you Brawl anyway, right? So it's the same,
Sure,
it's the
sure,
same
sure,
on both sides. Picks up the Avenge this time off the Death Rattle from the Bell Ringer. Regardless, he's about to have them all, apart from this Redemption, because as with Bwansamdi, you always draw the secret when you're about to play Mysterious Challenger.
imagine if that was just card text.
Yeah.
They actually just put it in. Oh, by the way, your previous turn will always draw a secret. Always draw a 1-drop. And now this is starting to get a little bit out of control. This is like the perfect board you want versus Warrior, I feel. And this is very reminiscent of the board you wanted versus Warrior back when Secret Paladin originally came
Yes.
around.
Yeah,
right?
you're not
It's
wrong.
like it's exactly the same in the matchup.
Yeah.
You've got Secrets live, Avenge is going to go off, there's only 2 minions, especially now like Dynamatic doesn't do a good enough job, although it's close.
Yes, this is
Tough.
auto defense Noble Sack Avenge that's in play right now for Orange, right? With the Redemption in his hand.
And he's already gained the health buff on,
Yep.
which is...
Never Surrender.
Never Surrender, that's it.
Since when is this how our dynamic worked? I have to remember card names now? That can't be my job.
You've got the deck list in front of you and I've not, so I think you've subliminally soaked up the names as
Okay.
you've glanced at it.
Okay.
And sorry, I've not played tons of Secret Paladin in the build-up to Asia Pacific when no one played it.
Should have done. It's the nuts. Highest win rate deck in the game. Just got to get jamming some secret pally, Raven.
I will be doing it. It's just I've had no time, Sol. Been busy. Asia Pacific playoffs. Yeah, no secret paladin. I know what I'm playing this week.
Glowtron True Silver. Get pushing some damage.
Glowtron True. Yep, looks good to me.
Seems exciting.
Ready for choice of 8-drop as well.
And then probably a redemption over the hero power.
Yes, especially because you follow-ups. And a 1-1 only makes other things better, I think, for Totosh. Although he has seen a brawl. All these redemptions are good. A 6-attack minion, a Divine Shield
minion,
and if nothing
the
dies,
other things you're about to play
and if
next
nothing
turn.
dies, whoa, game winning.
Really? Really?
My question now is, though, when is this redemption ever played? On turn 9 with an 8-drop, maybe?
I mean, turn 9 is the answer, yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's just thinking if the board gets cleared, he can go to turn 9, guaranteed 8-drop.
Yes, I think you've actually nailed it there. I think that's exactly what he's thinking. Whereas he's just happy with this board right now. If he sees Brawl number 2 or a Plague of Wrath on this board, he just thinks he's chilling because then he can push more with his 8-drop, and then he has the option to just get a redemption on a Rag or the other way around on the Tyrion. So yeah, this makes sense. Actually, having thought about it more, I still don't know whether I like this more, but I certainly I'm not going to argue.
I don't hate it.
Yeah. I'll go a little bit lighter than that as well. I understand it, and I will have the debate and probably find out that orange is right.
You're saying you're not a person that can only like something or hate it? Harrison would look good here to peel off the True Silver.
Apart from you just get absolutely smoked on the backswing.
Yeah. Wow. This went wrong very quickly for Totosh, didn't it?
All right, third option. On that turn, what if you did neither? You didn't play redemption or press the hero power. You just floated the mana.
Now I have to pick whether it's like or hate.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Deal or no deal, Raven?
I'd have to go for a like.
Okay.
On that one.
Rag for 8 damage to face. This is where things get interesting, right? Because I think Tyrion with redemption, it's cool and everything, but it's not like you get 30 damages worth of Ashbringer swings out of Tyrion redemption a lot of the time.
But you get 20.
Yes.
Is that better than a Rag that your opponent could play minions into? I think it might be.
Well, so it's also weighted by the idea that this Rag right now deals 8 damage to his opponent's face. And that does not always happen on turns after this, because the warrior might have minions in play.
Which is why I think Rag now, redemption Tyrion is the backup.
Right.
Because Ashbringer always deals 15, right?
Okay.
Well, okay, not always. But most of the time.
Yes.
And most of the time it deals 20. Because you normally get one swing.
Tyrion redemption also does make things slightly awkward against Harrison Jones, if that's the option that your opponent has. Because they kill the Tyrion, they then want to spend the rest of their mana that turn on the Harrison Jones to destroy the weapon. But they can't do that because it comes back. So they have to kill it twice and then Harrison it the next turn most of the time.
Which is hard. It's a big ask.
Yeah.
Orange, though, it's going to go for that Tyrion this turn instead and say 2 Divine Shields, relatively high health minions, 2 Brawls have been gone, only 1 Plague in the deck, as you mentioned. So, yeah, enjoy that one. Maybe he's planning on Rag to finish. The only weird... Yeah, so Tyrion does 6, Rag does 8, basically. So, it's very, very close. I think I would naturally just lean to just Rag guaranteed 8 to face first.
I really like Rag redemption. I don't know why. Something's just telling me that that's the nuts.
Because of alliteration, maybe?
Could be. Does sound a lot more pleasing than Tyrion redemption. Card's not called Tedemption, is it?
Two-demption.
Let the pain speak to me.
Okay, so Totosh is going to go digging. Ooh. Whirlwind's definitely not bad, but he needs the Plague.
Whoa, that play is a scary, scary business for Totosh here. Orange has, at worst, a 50-50 for lethal this turn.
How much damage does Rag do?
How much health does Totosh have, Mori? But I thought it was at 50. I used to make the complete opposite mistake. I thought it was at 15 for some reason. I just
not even close.
I just can't read.
Sol's gone from like, you know, as casters, we all make small, one-off lethal,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
miscast. Sol's like, I just thought it was a different number. It's like completely.
Literally forgot how numerals work.
It's like Roman numerals, and you're like, oh, what does that
Yeah,
say
actually,
now?
can we just switch everything to Roman numerals? Because I understand that better. I won't make that mistake again.
And I wonder if that is a reason to just not rag, right? It's not lethal. Sometimes
Nah.
it's not even close.
No.
But I guess the difference.
nah.
Well, I guess the difference is as well. If this is cleared, the board has to be cleared. With Redemption, that's very difficult. And also, the Ashbringer does the final hurdle, guaranteed almost, right?
Right.
So Orange almost putting totosh in checkmate here. We'll see if he has any strong ideas about how he can get out of this, but it is not looking too hot as far as I'm concerned, Sol.
It's not. Dr. Boom, Mad Genius would take him straight back up to 16, and then there would be 9, 17 coming back the other way. Feel free to check all of my maths on all of this, by the way. The Harrison Jones option, like, what's your clear potential? Because you know this last secret is Redemption, right? Like, that's not a secret there. You know it's there. So I wonder if there's any other play that you can make that can potentially get you out of that position. I certainly don't see it. Dr. Boom wasn't it. You had no more options to cycle and find your way through. Warpath.
There just wasn't, was there?
Warpath wasn't it either. Yeah, I don't see it. So I guess just do the Restless Mummy, hope the game bugged was the right idea in that situation.
Yep, and can I just get a numbers check for you, Sol? What is the score between these two players right now?
It is currently 1-1, Raven.
Okay, I'm glad Sol's not an admin because he'd just be like, 3-1 to Orange.
15.
He's 12-0 this game. What's happened?
Just can't read.
That was actually really weird because it's never happened before. But anyway, we are 1-1, and that means it is break time as the players get ready for their next game of Hearthstone here. Remember, the winner goes on to continue in the tournament, and the loser goes home. So we'll be right back to continue totosh versus Orange right after this. We're in our second quarterfinal of the day between Orange and totosh, and currently we are getting ready to go into game number 3, as it's all even 1-1 between these players. Very close lineups, I think, in terms of just strength, I would say. I think both players have a pretty solid lineup here. Nothing too wacky like in match number 1 of the day, so I think it's still going to be pretty close.
It is, absolutely, and there's still huge implications for Grandmasters qualification in this series as well, because the European spot, or the second European spot, is the one that is still open. And both of these players need to win the tournament to get that promotion
that small thing
into Grandmasters. And there is the option as well for Dead Draw, who I believe has a little bit more leeway. He can finish second as long as Orange or totosh don't win the tournament and still make it through, because he has a little bit of cash from previous Masters Tours as well. These guys are both from a standing start, so they need an outright win to be able to leapfrog into second place.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a close one. We saw the Paladin doing the work for Orange and also the Shaman doing the work for totosh. But what do we have left now? And is there any really sticking point when we get into game number 3, which is going to be the Priest versus Warrior?
I think as I would have said, even before this matchup came up, that if this matchup did appear, then it was going to be a big kicker in the series, because this is like the hotly debated matchup that we've had throughout Grandmasters for basically 8 weeks since this deck showed up. So it's potentially like the one weakness in Orange's lineup if he's not able to find this big combo priest win, if he does run it into the Control Warrior, and you are a believer that the Control Warrior is favored, which personally I am not, especially when you're not playing all the removal, which totosh isn't. He is only playing 1 Plague of Wrath. He does still have 2 Brawls, does still have all the Warpaths, does still have the Whirlwind as well, and Double Weapons Project, which I mentioned can be relevant in this matchup also, but just that 1 Plague of Wrath being missing can just sometimes be the difference between a 49% matchup and a 51% matchup.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, even if it's Plague of Wrath, 1 minion, it's enough to win the game.
Big execute is sometimes the nuts in this match. Although I will say, now having said that actually there is just a copy of execute in totosh's deck.
Oh, okay.
Which
so it's small execute.
If going to be used for that purpose, yeah, just medium execute, regular execute.
Yeah, now we need baby execute.
Baby execute and regular execute.
For me, honestly, in terms of this matchup, and this is going to sound very, very boring, I really think it's just 50-50. Straight down the line. We've cast a lot of this matchup during Asia Pacific Grandmasters.
You must get very uncomfortable sitting on all these fences, Raven.
No, this is why I'm annoyed, because this one is not me wussing out. I truly believe...
This is you taking a stance that it is exactly even.
On this fence.
Okay.
Just 1 foot though, so I'm doing like a cool balance move, I don't know.
Right.
But I truly believe this is just very 50-50. Maybe one of the closest matchups we even have in the game right now.
Right.
Already, though, the injured Tolve coming down from Orange, and none of the early drops. I will say, though, I feel like every matchup I've cast, apart from this one now, Town Cry has been in the opening Warrior hand, which definitely helps out the matchup a lot. Yeah,
1 drop would have made a massive difference here. Eternium Rover even, like you'd have Shield Slam options if you drew Eternium Rover, just being able to get that extra 2 armor by bumping in. And now Orange is going to have the opportunity to just get ahead of the removal by making big minions very, very early.
It's spicy time. Even that card draw opportunity as well with that Circle of Healing, which I'm sure he's going to go for. Although it is only healing 1 minion. It looks pretty good to me. Buffs the Light Warden, keeps the cycle going, and I think most importantly as well, the Divine Shield is there to sort of cash in on this extra health. The Divine Spirit, apologies.
Yeah, if Orange didn't circle that turn, I would have personally banned him from GM.
Just got up, walked over, and just like pushed him out the chair.
Yeah. Now with Powered Shield Divine Spirit as well, and like I said, these big minions are coming down just a little bit ahead of the removal curve for Warrior, which means this 2/6 is going to be tough for totosh to deal with because the Restless Mummy isn't there, because the Town Crier hasn't been played already. So now if there is an Inner Fire or something similar picked up, you might be looking for Orange to perhaps engineer this into a situation where it's just the 1 big minion situation against Warrior, where Brawl really struggles to have an impact. But Orange will know about that execute. That is a big kicker in the matchup. Very, very different situation than he might be used to.
A part of me was even considering whether totosh just shouldn't have killed the Light Warden, because without exactly Pyromancer, it doesn't get out of control, right?
Sure, it is.
You know, like
it is a flame imp though. That does hurt when it continues to hit you every turn.
It is. It's just he has Warpath for an emergency and Brawl straight into turn 5.
Sure.
So just the thought of maybe you let them be wide because Brawl's so much better. Whereas right now he doesn't have an answer to a big minion.
Okay.
He just dies.
Yeah, fair enough.
And maybe he could have just took the hits for a couple of turns. It would have felt bad, but.
The problem is he just really doesn't, like, double Warpath was going to suck next turn, right? So, like, he would have taken 3 from the Light Warden, he would have got hit by the Light Warden again because you're not, there's no way you're Warpathing on turn 4, right?
No,
just
I agree,
to kill
I
a
agree.
3-2.
Yeah. Well, you may as well have killed it the previous turn if you're doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So then Brawl happens on turn 5, but you've kind of committed yourself to the Brawl on turn 5.
Yeah, maybe it does lock you down. I don't know. I just feel that he's made the board a shape that is awkward for him on purpose.
It was just a 2-6 at that point, though, so he did have the outs of just, like, ripping the Restless Mummy or whatever else to get himself in a better spot.
totosh just sitting there. You can even see in his face just going, well, that's a hero power pass.
Orange just has 21 this turn. That's disgusting. He's just so close already.
Like, and honestly, at this point, these are the tricky turns for me with Priest. If he does stuff, he normally ends up playing minions. Is playing minions necessarily always good when you have this like just this 2-minion awkward board?
Right.
If you don't play minions, he's doing what, like Divine Spirit Pass, which still only pushes 3 damage and doesn't draw any cards.
I don't think he ever plays the Divine Spirit.
Right. So that's what. So the decision this turn, I feel, is very difficult, and where the skill edge of Priest comes in. Although Priest, people remember the derpy, like, I hit you for 50 and I'm dead. These are the hard turns, because these turns can lose you the game.
I think the turn is either Acolyte of Pain, go, or hit you, play nothing, go. I think those are the 2 possible turns here.
So he's going to go for the Acolyte of Pain. This does, at worst case, open up potential for card draw. Or more potential for card draw, should I say. There's an execute.
Okay, the tech card potentially now coming in huge for totosh.
It's good Orange didn't Divine Spirit. Not that he was ever going to, but I'm just saying. Someone's done that in the past.
When you have Beaming Divine Topsy in your hand, like, you're not going to preemptively jam that. Like, unless it pulls out of range of removal. Like, maybe this was a 2-6, right? And, like, even then, you have a read that your opponent doesn't have Restless Mummy because there wouldn't have been a Restless Mummy on the previous turn. But, like, that's the kind of situation, right? Where it's a 2-6, like, this dies to Restless Mummy, I'll play the Divine Spirit so it doesn't die to Restless Mummy. Like, that's a thought process you can go to. It's already a 2-8. Like, it doesn't die to a single removal this turn unless it's Execute, which is the big kicker in totosh's deck.
Well, here comes the Brawl. And let's see what's going to live. It is the Cleric. And what do you think was Orange's best outcome there, the Tolve? Because when you look at Cleric, Tolve, or Acolyte, they're 3 pretty good cards in this spot right now.
Yep.
The Tolve obviously had soaked some level of buffage and healing. So was that the best one there? Or was Orange kind of okay with any outcome after that Brawl?
I think with Bonsamdi in hand, the 2-8 was probably the best outcome, because he's not desperate for card draw. I think that's actually the debate he had on the previous turn. I didn't really get to fully go down this thought process, but it's why the 2 turns were play nothing or play Acolyte. And I think that decision largely rests on how likely do you think your opponent is to have Brawl, and do you think playing Acolyte improves or makes the Brawl worse for you, right? Because Acolyte winning isn't a bad outcome. It's card draw. You can keep picking up cards from it. Throwing an Acolyte out there, getting it brawled and drawing 0 cards, is that a loss for you? Or is that a win for you because the Acolyte died and your 2-8 lived
And -1 Brawl.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very tricky, isn't it? Honestly, this deck's nuts. It's going to be a heal on totosh's face just to buff this Light Warden. And now Orange is doing the thing where he's like piecing together kind of a threatening board, and he's just going to see what totosh does about it. But again, that's a lot of 1-drops Bonsamdi.
It is, yes.
A little bit unfortunate. But then again, I think Bonsamdi just being a 7/7 is quite underrated by a lot of people, because sometimes you Divine Spirit that guy and just kill them.
Yeah. If they can't kill a 7/7, they're in trouble. But I think Orange is going to have to force his way over the line sooner rather than later in this matchup. So I think totosh's hand will start to take over the next 2 or 3 turns. He already has either 2 Restless Mummies or a Restless Mummy and a Ziliax available to him off these Town Criers. And then he already has the Tomb Warden to come down, which just the double taunt is just a nightmare for Priest to deal with a lot of the time.
This is scary though. Psycho Pump as a follow-up from this could cause some trouble.
Sure.
He does have Restless Mummies, as you mentioned. Fantastic
Oof.
draw from a Town Crier, of course. But that was a lot of removal. Warpath and Execute used just on a 5 health Cleric. And he cleared the rest of the board, of course, but I mean the Execute. And that... yeah, I'm kind of with you, Totosh. If I couldn't just see Orange's hand, I'd be like, what does he have?
I think that's what was going on. There was some finger counting from Totosh just on his camera there as he was working his way through that turn. I think he is just trying to develop like a potentially perfect hand read on what cards are available for Orange. And then when he sees 6 mana pass, he starts to have an extremely good idea of what's going on over on the other side.
Yeah, and with even just Restless Mummy Weapons Project available, he knows that he can take down a Bwonsamdi if required.
Yeah.
Even from hand.
Kind of like just playing the Eternium Rover and the Restless Mummy here. Give yourself that magnetic base for the Ziliax next turn. Just already have the Mummy in play. Because you can't play Mummy and Ziliax on the following turn anyway, so this is just maximum tempo over 2.
And there's no punish outside Orange, like, randomly having Pyromancer and Thunder spells. He's like, haha, baited you, which is just never going to happen.
Right. And this is just a 2-draw. 1 Samdi, I believe. 1 Cleric, 1 Psychic.
Yep. And now look how double Divine Spirit. There's extra arms. There's the sidekick. But is there going to be a minion on the board to attack? And that is the weakness right now.
It's going to have to be Armet. It's the only way from this point forward that Orange ever sticks a minion. Needs to find that Armet, needs to have a cycle turn with this Cleric that he has, and then he needs to still have minions left to play, which is very hard because these are the last 2 1-drops in his deck, which of course are the best things to be playing alongside that Armet.
I actually think I really like just Tomb Warden this turn. Get 2 big chunk, like they cannot be pyroed down. Get them down, you kill off the Bwonsamdi anyway. You're not forsaking killing the minion.
Yep.
The minion's dying on the priest side of the board. Priority number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Priority number 5, put some big taunts in the way. Ugh. Does it just pass again?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure any of these cards are playable for Orange this turn.
And the problem is the Ziliax in hand, or the problem for Orange, should I say, the Ziliax in hand for Totesh means he is secure on so many levels.
Yeah.
Even if there's a kind of buffed minion created, well, Ziliax, Weapons Project, Dynamatic, all of these things just destroy any reasonably healthy minion, even if it's buffed.
Yep.
And outside of that, he's just going to start killing Orange soon, so Totesh got himself in a fantastic spot. And he, even with a not mind-blowing execute being used, but a good one, he's just, I think, secure in this game right now.
So the plan here for Orange is pass this turn, draw Wild Pyromancer exactly, and then you use Pyro and your minions and your Cleric with the Circle of Healing to draw 1,000,000 cards. You Topsy one of the 3/6 Tomb Wardens so that you can blow through it with your Pyro turn at the same time, and you end the turn with an Armet in your hand off the card draw, some minions in your hand off the card draw,
Psycho Pump,
and double Divine Spirit in a Fire in your hand off the card draw. Like, that's the loose plan of how Orange finds his, like, 1% to get out of this game.
Yeah, in summary, 1 turn, draw your deck, kill taunts. Next turn, make minions to kill them with.
Play Armet plus every remaining minion in your deck.
Cross fingers.
Step 3, play these 2 Divine Spirits, win the game.
That was not a Pyro, though, and like I said, it's less now about Totosh securing his defense and more about Orange not dying very soon.
This is a super clutch Acolyte as well by Totosh. I think he identifies the same situation, right? Where he's like, well, my opponent has to have a Pyro turn to get back into this.
Yeah. Thank you for the cards.
Yep.
Jeez, he can't even damage an enemy minion. And healing. That's when you know it's bad.
Could make a 112 here. Is that ever a thing? Could make a 120 here. Is that ever a thing? The 120 might be an out, I guess. 120 Northshire Cleric, have your Circle of Healing turn next turn, draw Pyromancer next turn.
I agree, something has to happen, and you know Execute's gone.
this achieve? Injuring some minions on the board so he has Cleric Circle next turn? Okay, sure. Sign me up. Again, like there's going to be disagreements here because generally most players will like look at a position like this, see one potential route where they might win the game, and that's going to be based on like different hand reads, certain cards they're going to choose to ignore because they think they can't beat them, so on and so forth. And they're like, all right, I'm just going to play to that most of the time. It's just tiny fractions of percentage to win the game. I'm sorry? Okay, good. I thought he was just going to smoke the Cleric.
It would have been good though, right, if he did.
Yeah, it would have been insane.
Weapons projects it down, no minions took any damage.
Yeah.
Aha.
Just double checking they hadn't patched in the mech tag to Acolyte of Pain for a
Why
second.
not at this point?
Yeah.
Unity, precision.
This looking a little bit too hot to handle here for Orange right now with totosh. Is not only managed to defend, he's on 39 health.
Okay. Play things, Orange. You need every second you have available this turn. Play it all.
Lock it in.
You've been thinking about this for the last 3 turns. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Just start doing it.
Do you like to play with fire?
totosh is like, oh, okay, got one.
Psychic goes Pyro,
Got you,
no?
friend.
Psychic goes Cleric? Okay. Burst, Circle of Healing, Acolyte is dead, draw 5. Find the Silence for the 6/8. In fact, this Psychic didn't go on the Pyro, though, is going to mean that he needs to spend additional mana keeping his Pyromancer alive, which is why that seems a little bit unusual to me.
Yeah, the 6 Charms on Nephroset would have done it as well. Wonder why he doesn't Nephroset actually. Guess he needs the spell damage from the spell effect from the Pyro.
And he needs to draw the Silence here. Powered Shield is okay, but significantly worse than Silence. Powered Shield into Silence is the absolute nuts. Powered Shield into... No.
They missed it.
Did he already play it? I hope he didn't already play it.
Silence?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Orange, shake of the head and sit back now because he probably knows, although yes, he has plenty of cards, and if a minion sticks, he could win the game. But a lot of his high health stuff has gone, and the problem is it's not the playing the minions, it's having them stick, which is the big problem. And honestly, why, even though it never even, I think, got played, the decks that ran Stormwind Knight in APAC at least, I can appreciate the thought, right? You have a minion that doesn't require a turn to get ready to attack.
Yeah.
This story deserves a new ending.
Okay. Make a 7/7. Why not? Is he thinking he just has enough to win the game?
Wait, I'm sorry, the cards are obscuring the board for me now, but I don't think he full clears the board with this Elysiana being played, right?
Well, remember, that's priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yes. Don't get me wrong, I'm all on board for tempoing a War Golem against Priest. Like, it's really powerful a lot of the time. But he needs to be able to clear the board, first and foremost.
That's a good one to clear the board.
And might learn
Deathwing.
that he is able to do that when they get there.
He roped even just... Okay, got the attacks, yeah.
Deathwing, Undertaker, Soul, Countess Ashmore. Okay, sure.
Ashmore to draw on Deathwing.
So there's 2/2 being in play now. I mean, yeah, okay, this is fine. Like, honestly, like, I don't think that he's ever made himself a loss condition here because he knows the cards that are remaining, right? He knows that this...
And he has got Whirlwind Plague.
Yes, he has Whirlwind, and he also has Spellbreaker, crucially. So Orange can never, like, you know, silence this Tomb Ward and make his Nephroset as huge as it can be, which isn't even really that big, and just, you know, start 10-10ing him in the face for 3 or 4 turns because it's just going to get Spellbreakered. So it's fine. Like, there isn't really a disaster here with playing the Elysiana. He's just threatening lethal himself. Like, it seems fine.
I've got more left in me. Murder! Life is enough.
Orange desperately still trying to stick himself a minion here.
And he's doing a decent job of it in terms of, if you just look the way this board has ended, well, the 2/2's not much of a threat, doesn't really kill anything. The Elysiana can only kill one minion, because it can only swing once, which means Orange is making the plan that the Blade Master lives this turn.
Yeah. And I think in response, if you're Totosh, you just 5-path this turn. You smack the Elysiana into the 2/6, and then the 2/2 into the 4/7, and then just use 5 warpaths to clear the board, because that's everything else in your hand, right? Like the Plague of Wrath hand. The Plague of Wrath Whirlwind is just like the ultimate board clear. You could also just say, all right, screw it, I don't need to clear this board. I guess that's also very justifiable.
He's also getting... Of course, Priest can do tons of damage, but he's also getting like 41 health now. It's getting harder and harder to actually get there when Power Word Shields, Sidekicks are gone, the extra arms are gone.
It's 28 right here and now, though. I think Totosh himself is actually counting that. I can very faintly hear him talking to himself. I think he might be just considering how much the maximum damage his opponent can do is here. And I think he's right. I think it's 28. I think he never dies this turn. Both Power Word Shields are used, I believe. Both Beaming Sidekicks are certainly used.
The extra arms too.
Yep, extra arms is gone.
And fair enough to Orange.
Orange is just a 28th gamer. That's all he's got. Never going to get a better opportunity. And this is going to be hit you for 28, followed by clear your board, followed by concede.
GG.
I'm slightly disappointed. We could have found out a lot about Totosh as a person here if he'd have drawn a Deathwing this turn.
Oh yeah, I would have slammed Deathwing very hard this turn and just been like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. I'll draw my next one if there's any problems.
Yeah.
What do you think he's considering here?
Everything. He has an opportunity to be a Grandmaster next year. He is considering everything this turn. I'm very much with you. Clear the board in some way that seems non-awful, and you win the game.
I was trying to think, but I don't think Plague... Like, normally you want to hold AoE for as long as possible to make it better. I actually don't think Plague often gets any better. He's found a way to clear the board and keep some minions, so absolutely fair play to Totesh. But I think if he just jammed a Plague there, I wouldn't have been that upset.
Yeah, I think if he had an option where he didn't use Plague and he kept his Elysiana in play, just as a War Golem still smacking his opponent, then there would be zero argument there, right? Like, you do that option.
That's correct, yeah.
The fact that Elysiana also still had to trade into the 4/7, I don't think it really mattered in that position which way around he did it.
Although that looks better, and it's an absolutely fine turn, don't get me wrong, as he takes the win, of course, but the issue being that if you then are forced to Plague the turn after, you lose all those minions you then played.
Right, but so the reason why I do actually think the way he ended up doing it is slightly better is that he knows he still has to potentially beat the Armet. Right? Like, he doesn't. He's won the game. But when you are in that position he's in, where he's not, he's not a huge high-profile player like Orange is, who's ever been in this spot before, and he has the opportunity, if he wins this tournament, to be a European Grandmaster for next season. When you're in that position, you are going to try and make sure you're playing the best Hearthstone of your life, which often means just absolutely overthinking everything to a ridiculous degree. So you'll convince yourself there that there's a world where you still lose to the Armet coming down, in which case you want to have minions in play and a Plague of Wrath in your hand, because then you can always clear the Armet board afterwards.
Yeah, it happens every time.
Even if you just have to trade and play the Plague of
And
Wrath.
it's a general thing, right? The way a lot of matchups that do well versus Priest is they don't actually really kill Priest. They just have the ability to kill every minion in their deck. And as long as you can ensure that happens and you don't die, that's a pretty successful way to do it.
Yeah, it's the Holy Wrath Paladin factor,
Exactly,
right? Where a lot of the time you're just not even shooting the 25 at their face. You just clear their minions, you get a couple of Shavalas on board, they can't deal with it, and that just kind of ends the game. But Totosh now finds himself in a position where he is 2 games to 1 up in this series One game away from crushing Orange's dreams once again, ending his hopes of being a Grandmaster for Season 3. But still, even if totosh wins this game, he is still some distance away from securing Hearthstone Grandmasters for himself from Season 3.
He really is, and he has combo Priest to be able to do that with, and this looks like a bad matchup the way I'm looking at it, Subtle, but let's just remember, this is standard Conquest, so there's no floating decks. He has to win with this Priest, but most importantly, Orange, even if he just moonwalks a win with this Rogue, he has one more deck left to win against this Priest again.
Which is the mirror match.
Wouldn't be the first time GM life is on the line down to these Priests.
Yeah, I do like this matchup for the Rogue side. It's borne out in the stats that we do have. You can look up on the Battlefly site for the tournament bracket, where you can see that Rogue has performed very well and specifically performed extremely well against Priest. I think it's a comment that I made earlier where even when Rogue was just in the dumpster, just an unplayable class at the top level, it was still putting up decent matchups against Priest in particular.
Right.
When a lot of other decks were struggling to do that, it just lost to every other Hearthstone deck, so it made it, really, really unplayable in a multi-class format.
Yeah, we're going to see how well it does, because totosh does not have the worst opening hand in the world.
No.
The heal with the Tolvirs, although maybe not a standardly good opening hand, because, no cleric and stuff, but just having minions with high health, being able to just push back all these rogue minions early game, definitely doesn't look bad to me. And also the power word shield helping out that lack of card draw right now means that just because it's a bad matchup doesn't mean it loses 100% of the time.
Absolutely not. A bad matchup for Combo Priest is like 47 at worst, like... The one card Orange is missing, though, that he would really, really love to see is the Underbelly Fence. That is the card in this matchup that just rips apart what they're trying to do. Can come out, deal 3, kill a minion, and just still be in play, contesting the next minion as well. Like,
great target for Shadow Step, stuff
Yes.
like that as well. It's just the high value just keeps on coming in. I like it.
Oh, it's getting messy already. It's getting very, very messy already.
I was wondering if he was just going to do it that turn.
No, this is always better, Raven. Look at what he did this turn.
Yeah. Could have had a bit bigger minion.
What do you... Okay, so he was only playing Divine Spirit last turn. He didn't have the mana to play Divine Spirit and Inner Fire. And now he has 2 giant minions in play that he can Divine Spirit, Inner Fire either of them on the following turn. And his opponent plays the card Sap in their deck.
Whatever, okay? I do agree, I'm just joking. But now with that Divine Spirit in a fire, it does mean that you can push tons of damage. But now is where does Orange's discipline come into play here? And my point is, or question I guess is, when do you play Sap versus Priest? Like, does he Sap a 2/8? Oh! Oh my god, there's too many Tolvirs in this game for my liking.
GM, by the way. That is a GM 2-drop right there. Whew.
It's not even injured.
Sometimes you evolve and you hit the 3-mana 2/6 and people go, wow, that's pretty sick. That's a high roll. That's a freaking 2-drop, all right? That's a low roll. 18 damage this turn for totosh. You want the answer to the question, when do you use Sap against Priest?
That's what I'm waiting for, yeah.
If your opponent makes a 16-16, that's a pretty good time to use Sap against Priest.
Yes, but if your opponent has an 8 health minion sticking on the board, is that good enough? Is that not? I know there are varying degrees of this based on hand size,
Most of the time, no, but honestly, a lot of what you have to do is what we saw totosh doing perfectly towards the end of that Warrior game, which is what's the most my opponent can realistically do this turn. Because Sap is your resource. It's also, we're looking at it in one direction, you can also look at it in the other direction, where the threat of Sap is the fear factor to stop Priest doing things like this.
Correct, yeah.
So the longer you don't Sap, the more credit your opponent gives you for having the Sap, and the greedier that you can get, and it's kind of a snowbally situation in that regard.
It's very difficult, isn't it?
This just happens to be a hand from totosh where, what on earth else was he going to do this turn? Yeah,
trade, circle.
It's 16-16, go. That is the line. His hand did absolutely nothing else.
Yeah, and also as well, although the fence now might not have the highest impact that it would in some games, it still does a great job here being combined with that Sap to help push more damage, and most importantly for Orange, keep more minions on the board.
I think you see both players here. They're trying to keep professionalism. They're trying to keep a straight face. But I think Orange just knows he won this matchup. I think totosh just knows he lost this matchup. Just based off that sap alone. They both understood what the deal was. totosh had to go all in. Zero criticism of going all in. His hand did absolutely nothing else. Orange ripped the sap. And the game is over.
And got him.
And it's Priest Mirror time, Raven.
My favorite time, and I think most players' least favorite time, especially when tournament life is on the line. These matches are just you win, you're in,
So,
you lose, you're out.
I don't know, mate, if this is an Armet,
Cleric?
if this is a Psycho Pomp, and then the next draw is like one Samdi, he gets to play it on 7, and then there's an Armet drawn in between there as well, maybe? But it needs to be totosh chooses the card he draws every turn to this point.
Hey, you said maybe, so I'm playing this game out if I was totosh right now.
Oh, obviously, yeah. I mean, honestly, that 2-6 rolling off the Faceless Lackey is actually huge because it's cutting so deeply into totosh's Pyromancer outs here. You look at the rest of the board, you're like, well, he just has to draw a Pyro and he's chilling. Like, he can fight back against this board really, really nicely. But the fact there's a 2-6 off the Faceless Lackey is just kind of stopping that from being a reality.
And I really like this pass as well. Like, he could have put something on the board, but he wouldn't have done anything. It would be a mild inconvenience to Orange's next turn as a total. Whereas, Nephroset Ritualist, Circle, Tolve, these activate so much potential power later in the deck. totosh just needs the discipline to hold on, and he does have that. And we've seen that from him in the last game as well. Something I'm starting to like about totosh is that I feel like he just has a good, solid head in the fact that he doesn't go overboard. He thinks a lot about the future of the deck and where the game plan can go and plans for it. In the meantime, though, Orange is just setting this up with the Shark. And that is not the draw he wants.
Go Shark here instead of Pick. Pick would have pushed 8 more damage over a couple of turns, but I don't think really or realistically changes the lethal clock, so this probably makes sense. Orange maybe starting to get a little bit concerned with board space, but I don't think that's ever a real thing.
Hey, if you're in out of board space because the Priest ain't playing minions, great.
Right, but it's kind of, that's what I'm thinking. Like, do you ever slow down your clock too much by just having 1 power minions in every spot on your board? Right, is that like ever a real thing where you just get a slower clock because you've filled up your board and can't play, for example, Leroy, you can't play Life Drinker, you can't play King Togwaggle, whatever else?
Well, I definitely would like to see Waggle pick now. He can still play the Rat, but as you said, this is now just a fixed amount of damage, but the Waggle pick unlocks that as well, which I think is key.
Right, you just use the Waggle pick to just pull any old minion off the board and just play something else.
You'd even let it die, wouldn't you? You'd just be like, yeah, whatever, just get rid of that minion, let me play something else.
Yeah. And then he has 1, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 13 represented on board for the next turn anyway, so yes, it's just absolutely not a factor.
And
he just
how much health does his opponent have? So
15!
Again, what? What are the odds? And that's going to be the concede there as Orange evens up this game. It was, in terms of matchup, the expected outcome, but totosh definitely had a chance there. If there wasn't the sap, that game looks very different.
Yeah, and that's not a very good chance because, you know, there's 2 saps in most of the decks and you give them decent odds to draw the sap at that point. And, like, even if there wasn't, there's still game because, like, the silence was used that turn to silence the 2-6 taunt. So suddenly, like, Cable Rat into Titanic Lackey is a real thing as well that buys time. And
there's 2 in his deck, though.
Yeah, and then 2 saps.
Oh, sorry, silences, I was meaning.
Sure. But he doesn't have the second silence, right?
Yeah,
so, like, Titanic Lackey comes down and then that stalls out and then there's even more time to draw the sap. So, like, it's definitely not a big out in that position, but totosh absolutely had to go for it
100%.
because it was the only thing his hand did, you know, as ridiculous as Raven's suggestion of doing it a turn earlier was. He timed it nicely, he made the great play, he took a value trade, circled up his board, made the 2 big guys in play, and then he really just took the only line he had. It was the one thing that his hand did, that was just make the big guy all in against the sap, and Orange just had it covered very comfortably, and that means that we are going to go all the way in this series. One of the most important series of Hearthstone in terms of Grandmasters implications that you will see in this tournament, and it's going to come all the way back, full circle of healing, to a Priest Mirror.
Yeah, is everything on the line between these 2 players. Both players have to win the whole thing to be able to make it into Grandmasters, which means one of them is going to put the other one away for this next game. But we're going to go to a quick break while we set up the next one, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to finish off totosh versus Orange. We are back with the second quarterfinal of the day. It's going to be Orange versus totosh, and we are going to be going into game number 5. It's all coming down to the last one, Sottle, and it's coming down to everyone's favorite matchup, the Priest Mirror.
It's slightly amusing that we're kind of seeing almost the reverse of the Hearthstone Grandmasters meta, where in the Hearthstone Grandmasters meta, it would be the first thing we saw because everyone knew that just Priest was,
just get it done.
Priest was just going to get a win. It would beat any other matchup that you queued into it, so you just have to queue the mirror because if they queue Priest first and you queue anything else, you're starting 1-0 down.
Right.
Whereas now, we've seen Priest be the deck that just couldn't get a win in the series. It's been run from both players' sides and run into bad matchups, which actually, on further reflection, I think probably like replacing Plague of Wrath with an Execute probably improves that matchup a little bit against Priest.
You can do it earlier.
Yeah, to the point where you can just be more efficient with it, right? You
Yep.
can tempo out and execute a minion, for example, and like swing the board or whatever. So I think that's a bad matchup. I think Rogue is a bad matchup. So we've started to see just a little bit of a gap in the armor of the Priest appearing in this tournament, where it's not quite the powerhouse that it has been for the last several months.
Here we go, though, and if I know Derek, he's getting excited about this opening hand, or maybe not because it's not oranges, but totosh with Inner Fire, Cleric, and Divine Shield is huge.
Going second, though, and Orange does also have the Inner Fire available to him. However, they've kept the Light Warden as the 2 health base going first. Absolutely no criticism. Light Warden, fantastic opener. Just comes up a little bit short against Cleric, Power Word Shield, Inner Fire on the other side, but he did also, crucially, did Orange find the Silence, which is not necessarily like even a keep or a card you mulligan for going first, because when you're going first, you want to be the guy doing the 1-drop buff Inner Fire, whereas when you're going second, you're like, well, yikes, my opponent can do the 1-drop buff Inner Fire, maybe I keep this Silence to play around that. It just so happens that because the situation here is flipped, and totosh has the advantage to do that first, he might, and that Silence might come in very, very useful.
Don't blame for this either as well, to make it as less likely to be killed off as possible. Next turn's almost certainly going to be an Inner Fire, unless anything goes wrong, in which he still has Nephroset, he still has some other options, especially with the Light Warden now, so it means that he's not completely out of it. And again, the Silence, although Inner Fire is incredible in the matchup and almost solos it, Silence doesn't win the other player the game, they just don't lose it. I think some people think that, oh, if you silence the Inner Fire, you just win. It's like, that's not the case.
No, you definitely don't.
Yeah, exactly.
They've Inner Fired and killed one of your minions for free, and they have the board, and then you just silence their minion. It's still a minion in play. They still have the board. It's just you're not immediately dead at that point. Tempo Pyro? Question mark? Certainly, I mean, okay, Caster Vision may be influencing this, but I think even blind, I would never silence this turn.
I think Pyro seems fine. You're not expecting to do big Pyro turns in this matchup, especially when your opponent started at turn 1 Cleric buff. So just get a minion down, get something there that can help chip away.
I just think it's very, very important because it allows you to silence next turn, and then presuming if there is a buff turn from totosh that they kill the Light Warden as a priority, which isn't necessarily always the case.
Weird, yeah.
Gets kind of 50-50. But even like either way around, right? If your Light Warden is alive, then you can silence, buff up the Light Warden with a heal, kill the Northshire Cleric that's remaining as a 1-3. If the Pyro lives, same thing. You silence, you heal up the Pyro, so it's a 3-2 again. You kill the Northshire Cleric.
And most importantly, heal nothing pass sucks, so that probably would have been a bad turn.
Heal your opponent's face and then attack them would have been the best line outside of playing a minion that turn, and yeah, that's just kind of miserable. That is an aggressive silence.
He's saying right now this Cleric will not die this turn. Obviously, we can see the way that it does with Orange's own Inner Fire, or now a Topsy. Which you'd argue that Topsy is the better card to sort of throw away.
Dude, Blade Master Topsy is like the nuts here. It's crazy. Also, when did totosh go to 29?
I wonder.
Did that have to happen?
Oh, with the hit from Orange?
Orange hit. Okay, so Orange hit with a Light Warden specifically. So sure. Fair enough. It might come back to bite him here, but I'm not going to call it wrong because he attacked with a Light Warden, so that's totally fine.
I must consider.
Honestly, the Priest Mirror, I feel like, has all of the weight of decisions of even the longest control mirror, but they're just compacted into like 3 turns. It's so insane.
Quickly.
So he is going to Topsy. Inner Fire has better usage over time. On a minion, you know you want to stick. And he is going to now return the favor and silence the Light Warden of Totosh.
And that is an ugly looking circle of healing, as they often are in the Priest Mirror.
And now my question is, does Totosh not play Nephroset because he doesn't want to muddy the Psychopomp pool with a worse card? Because he almost has to Psychopomp next turn.
Yes.
And surely, would he like a Cleric and a Light Warden over a potential Nephroset, but he would miss out on a minion this turn?
Yes. Everything you said is true. What the conclusion of all those statements is, situation unclear. The 2/3 being added to the board doesn't help him contest this Blade Master.
Because heal comes down.
Because heal comes into play, so this Blade Master has 5 health if Orange wants it to have at a minimum, which means the 1/2 plus the 2/3 doesn't really help contest it. But it does help contest a minion that Orange might draw and play on the next turn, which isn't the Blade Master. So then the board stops snowballing out of control because you've played your 2/3 here.
If you do res your Cleric, though, it also helps with the res Cleric because it's an additional heal as well as minion pressure a little bit later.
But if you've lost the board by that point, it doesn't matter. Like if there's just minions in play here from Orange, like exactly this, right? Like picture this exact scenario where there's just a minion being drawn and then Orange just plays it and trades into the 1/2 and the board is empty and there's just a 4/2 and a 4/3 on the other side of the board. What does Psychopomp into Cleric do? Absolutely nothing, because the 2 minions just farm your Cleric and he moves on, he plays another minion on his turn. So just here you can see, if this Blade Master gets played, the 4/3 goes into a minion, the other minion kills one of the Blade Masters, and Totosh is back in control just by rezzing a minion. Like, forget if it's a Cleric or not. Like, you just have a minion in play that's fighting for board. And so I definitely do like playing the minion here from Totosh. But I think it absolutely was a 70-second decision, which is what it was for Totosh that turn.
Orange looks like he's going to go for the heal over the Blade Master. Kind of ends up being the same.
It's the same, yeah, but you have a card in your hand, exactly.
Don't think Acolyte of Pain really changes much, as it just gets farmed by the Blade Master anyway. And Psychopomp, although its weakness is its health, its attack looks pretty good when you are fighting back aggressively for the board.
Yep. When there aren't 2 6s in play, when there aren't 1 2s in play, the 3/1 is a lot more attractive. Totosh does hit the girl, though. Best of both worlds, right? Something we didn't even really talk about. Sometimes you play the Nephroset and you still hit the Northshire Cleric off the Psychopomp. That's just all upside.
Orange is 1 circle away from like the largest health board in the world. Would obviously draw cards.
Drawing his opponent a million cards.
It would. I'm just saying, like, he has some very beefy minions, but no backup, no other support that you generally need.
Right.
Never know, he could hold on, go for the fatigue out. The Cleric circle and all damage minions easy.
Yeah.
Only 21 cards left.
This Cleric coming back is the nightmare for Orange, though. Any other minion that came through, he could bump in, he could heal up, he could play a second minion. The board state would be fairly even. He'd just be looking to just draw another playable card on the next turn and he moves on. The fact that it's Cleric just disrupts everything he wants to do this turn. Totosh definitely feels like something terrible is about to happen to him this turn.
He's thinking Pyro, isn't he?
He's thinking Pyro, most likely, yes. And he's about to get some very, very good news.
Ooh, okay. I quite like that, actually. You a fan?
Sure.
You a fan?
Yes. It's not something I considered, so I just had to take a moment to think about the implications of it, but it does make sense.
Makes the board live.
Yeah,
for a start, right, which is huge.
Inja Tolvir also made the board live, which, you know, is very, very relevant. But I think not letting like any of these minions get traded off the board easily makes the Circle of Healing even like scarier for Totosh if that's a card that he has. It also makes Pyromancer a little bit awkward, and I think he used an Inner Fire instead of a Tol'Vir to achieve a very similar effect. When Tol'Vir is like a card he can just play on any turn and it'll be fine, whereas Inner Fire is not always going to give him that opportunity.
And I was just going to ask you about this as well. The Circle of Healing came down. Totosh manipulated the board so that one Blade Master died. He drew less cards, but he killed a Blade Master.
Yeah.
Was that just a set decision there, do you think? Was that just correct to like kill one off Blade Master instead of drawing an extra card and leaving 2 Blade Masters down?
So I think the thought process there is I can only kill one of these Blade Masters. So my so my option is either I don't Circle of Healing and I don't draw 3+ cards this turn, or I just do what I can, right?
Okay.
And do what, like, obviously healing up both Blade Masters to 4/7 means that he's just massively behind on tempo, even though he has the card advantage, which is still a very losable position in the Priest Mirror. So I think killing one is a very happy compromise, and it's just kind of what Totosh's hand did that turn.
Right.
You know?
Also, Totosh ran Regenerate. I know Tom60229 was a fan of that card in his Priest throughout Grandmaster Season 2.
Yeah.
And we did see some value from it as well. Just a 0 mana heal thing.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty flexible when I talked about all these turns are very compact into the 3 to 4 turns of the opening game a lot of the time.
Right.
Well, if you have a 0 mana card, you can do more in any given of those turns because the mana is so restricted.
Right.
Is someone injured?
I've got more left in me.
Orange stews and agonizes that entire turn, comes up with a conclusion that play his cards was the best option he had available to him. But this is looking like a downhill slope from here.
It is, isn't it? And it's just hand size as well as the board. If the board's even, then hand size is king. Totosh just needs some level of attack on the board, though. He can't actually kill off these minions.
Yeah, I want to kill this cleric and then just start healing and drawing more cards, which he can do. He can topsy-turvy here now, trade the 5/1 into the 2/5, and then use his sidekick and Tol'Vir to value bump over the Northshire cleric, and then he's free to just heal up, draw as many cards as he wants from that position. But that's not going to help because he'd sacrifice the cleric first in doing that anyway, so it doesn't even really achieve the goal. So there's another way he could have done it? I don't think there was.
Have Acolyte, so he does technically have more card draw in his hand.
Sure. Right, I was just saying, like, my goal this turn was kill my opponent's cleric, then start drawing cards, which is not something he could very easily achieve there. So he does just go ahead and make the same play. It's just a little bit worse because he has to sacrifice his cleric to do so.
That's Saul's work review report. Must set more realistic goals. It's going to be on there. We'll review it later on.
Player struggles with self-assessment.
The end begins.
That's exciting.
And if there's ever a card that does stuff in these tricky situations, it's always Pyro, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pyro always like breaks the lock, I guess.
Sorry, did a wild game of Hearthstone just appear? I think it did, right?
Does line up pretty well.
Divine Spirit, this Blade Master, and then just crack it into the Tol'Vir.
Honestly, Saul, I don't see what else Orange is going to do. And I think not utilizing a 14 health minion this turn and killing another big minion seems like a bad play.
So it's the second copy of Silence that becomes a big relevance here, right? If you're saying that Totosh plays 2.
I will almost certainly plays 2.
I will double check.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Totosh does play 2 Silence, yes.
So now, Orange somehow looked through his pockets, found some lint, and then has just about stayed in this game somehow. Totosh has all the cards in the world, but he doesn't have an engine going. He doesn't have a big minion to start chunking damage. He doesn't have the card draw, the on-demand card draw, at least. He has an Acolyte, but that might get traded away with one hit, which is only one card draw. Orange only needs a couple of good draws now to really cash in on this, and all Totosh can really do is buy time, I guess, and try and go wide and hope going wide beats going tall. for Orange.
It's some impressive looking lint for sure. Orange's lint is oval in shape. It is a 411.
Speak to me.
Have you missed me, Raven?
I have. Good reference.
I've got more left in me.
In the meantime, though.
He was
also-
looking so very dead just a couple of turns ago.
Also, as well, for some reason, I thought Tolve and Blade Master could have come down this turn. Obviously, and the Acolyte. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought totosh could go, okay, bleh, there
sure.
you go. And he can't, so that obviously makes it even worse. Light Warden, not the pickup he wants, but at least he can kill through this taunt.
Yeah, it's a Hearthstone card.
He hits through the Tolve, he can heal. He still keeps a Pyro live, although it can be 100% dead next turn if totosh wants it to be. But still, it sticks around. He ends up ahead on board, even though he's had no cards all game. Crazy.
A long way ahead on board as well. Flame Imp 3-1, 4-11. 3-2-4-9 if he wants to do it that way. Maybe that's better, actually. Protect the Pyromancer from the Acolyte of Pain. Extra arms is an option your opponent might have. In which case he can get up to, what, 5 on board plus 4, 9? Okay, so healing the Blade Master keeps the Blade Master alive to an extra arms from the opponent. But extra arms is often the card that gets cut for some of these regenerate second silence type cards. So I'm just going to check whether that is a thing.
Okay, and now totosh has the Cleric, so he has access to heal and card draw, but I guess he has to trade the Blade Master into the Warden, which then keeps Orange's Blade Master alive. And remember, Orange's Blade Master has a pretty large health pool right now. Oh, Psychopomp playable. totosh can trade this Acolyte in for 1 extra card if he really wants to.
Yeah, totosh does not play the extra arms in his deck,
Right.
which makes the heal line from Orange make a lot of sense. Definitely
Also,
seems better to protect the Pyromancer.
Lets me know what he's cut because he's playing Regenerate, 2 Silences. It's like, must have cut something.
Yeah.
Is he playing 1 Sandy? Because I've seen that cut before
No.
for that. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah, +1 silence, +1 regenerate, -1 extra arms, -1 Sandy.
Just chuck this Light Warden down anyway. Might be doing this the old-fashioned way and just killing them with regular attack minions.
Power Word Shield into Circle of Healing draws 8 right now. Something to keep an eye on. No, it draws more than that. There's a freaking Acolyte Pain on the board.
Yeah.
Oof.
So there's currently 13 power on board for totosh. Arguably 12 maximum because there's no world in which this Light Warden lives, correct? This turn?
I don't think
As,
so,
as
no.
priority kill targets, there's too many minions. This Light Warden might solo you if Orange leaves it open. Orange looking to the palm of his hand for some questions to be answered here.
totosh was just a little bit close to creating a disaster scenario for himself on that turn, though. I don't exactly know how many healing effects Orange has left, but the fact that he has 7 cards remaining in his deck. This is an 8 minion board with a Northshire Cleric and an Acolyte Pain on the board, and there is a Pyromancer on the opposite side.
It could happen, or could have happened.
That's what I was talking about at the start of the turn when I said it drew 8.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
not for Orange, for totosh.
No, yeah. Just saying, when you look at the amount of cards, it is.
I think when your opponent is down to their last card when they're just drawing 1, like, sure, maybe you don't think about it that much, but like obviously we don't have Deck Tracker available to us here, but I believe Power Word Shield into Circle of Healing was like a real curve for Orange, or a real sequence of draws for Orange that turn. Without that option,
Well,
Orange just has to continue to play for tempo.
now there's silence, so this Blade Master doesn't look as hot anymore. Can be killed off by the other 2 Blade Masters. Comboing him there. And I feel like that's the way to go. Get rid of the Pyro, just leave the Psychic on the board.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Because now,
might be the final.
if totosh kills the Pyromancer, there is no sequence of draws that creates the disaster. Because the Pyromancers are gone, you can't draw Pyromancer and a Power Word Shield in the same turn. Well, you could. draw Power Shield first, Power Shield a minion, draw the
Sure.
Pyromancer, but that doesn't do anything.
Doable, but not doable at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't see a good reason for totosh to not silence here and just kill it. Just get rid of it. It's the last threatening minion left. And what else is silence going to do?
I can't think of a
Yeah,
compelling
I like
argument not to silence it.
Is he not killing it?
I like Go Face. I like silencing Go Face. This is what it's about to lead to, yeah.
Interesting.
You just set up lethal for yourself. Again, like, totosh was doing this in the previous game, right? It's just like, well, what's the max damage I can take here, right? What's the best thing my opponent does? And the answer is, the best thing my opponent does is not good enough.
Honestly, I just live in a fear and play against every priest where I'm like, you've got a minion, I'm killing it. Like, no matter what, probably to a fault.
Yeah.
But still, works out sometimes. But yeah, this is a nice play because he knows he's just not dead, as you said, right? He's never dead this turn.
It's just the classic misunderstanding of the word safe, right? Like, what's safe? Safe is winning the game the most often. So people will conflate being safe with trading lots, but if you go face and you end the game a turn sooner, that's safer than giving your opponent twice as many turns to find outs against you.
And now, Orange has done some magnificent work this game. I don't know how it's still going on, but that is going to be it. Orange takes the loss, and totosh takes the win 3-2 over Orange, and his dreams are still alive. And you can see what it means to him there, and both players just exhausted after that series. And it's a real shame to see Orange go out there. He did so well in the Swiss. You know, he had a lot of people behind him, but totosh, I think both players played very well. And although we've not seen totosh a lot, I think he took a very strong, measured approach to the game. And I feel like, you know, if he does make it into GM, he's going to be a pretty good contender because his play was, I think, just solid.
It did look very solid,
yeah.
yeah. But I think, you know, you mentioned you can see what it meant to totosh there at the end. I think you can see what it meant to both players right there at the end. You know, I was just following Orange out with my eye line as he just kind of walked out the room, head down, very dejected. Of course, we saw the scenes with Orange at the end of last season of Grandmasters where he did get relegated and how much it meant to him. And, you know, and I personally said to him that, you know, I was sad to see him go because I think he's a fantastic representation of what a professional Hearthstone player is and should be in the ideal world. But celebrate winners. I think that is the important takeaway here. totosh very, very deserving. And he, again, I think he played fantastic. I think there's very little criticism of what he did in that series. Apart from, you know, maybe just that little tiny disaster he opened himself up to at the end there. But that's fractions upon fractions of things. And you can see now that totosh is going to continue his march through this bracket. And once again, for context, the only European player left in this bracket that can become a Grandmaster without winning the tournament is Dead Draw. So totosh still needs to go all the way to that crown on the far right of your screen if he is to become.
If Dead Draw does better than totosh, he will go through, right?
Sure, yes.
Yes, yeah, just the point where, like, it's just a small thing where...
Yes, I say Dead Draw didn't have to win the tournament.
Right,
not that he can, like, if he wins the tournament, sure, then great, he's going to be through, but yeah.
But yeah, it's looking really good there. We had 2 matches in the day. Of course, it means we've got plenty more matches coming up and we'll move on. And by the end of the day, find out who is our Masters Tour Bucharest champion. But for now, we're going to go to a break while we set up the next match. So we'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.